So let's talk about the Netflix tax that we're all going to be paying, because I think there's a lot of misdirection and blurring of lines by the government. And I'm going to pull up what Chrystia Freeland said about this in the House, and we'll see if we can't figure out what is wrong here. Now, she said, quote, Canadians want a tax system that is fair, where everyone pays their fair share, so the government has the resources it needs to invest in people and keep our economy strong. That is why we are moving ahead with implementing GST/HST on multinational digital giants and limiting stock options deductions in the largest companies. Okay, so let's break that down sentence by sentence and see where she is blurring the line. Canadians want a tax system that is fair. Agree. Everyone pays their fair share. Okay, that's a really loaded term in many ways, but let's just go with it. Fine, fair taxes, fair system, no loopholes, no offshoring, fine, okay, let's just say that that's just what it means. So the government has the resources it needs to invest in people and keep our economy strong. So, okay, clearly she's talking about the government's income, the government's balance sheet. The government needs income to then spend on programs, and so she's talking about the tax system being fair, so the government has the money it needs to spend. So it's going to basically be a redirection of wealth. But that's what a government does, so that's not, again, not necessarily at issue, but she's focusing specifically on that. Here's the rub, though. That is why we're moving ahead with implementing GST/HST on multinational digital giants. Okay, the only problem, though, is you're not implementing GST or HST on the actual digital giants companies like Netflix. You're not implementing a tax on them. You're actually putting a tax on people who use this service. Now, if you've ever owned a business or done accounting for a business, you'll know what I'm talking about. Let's just say that the tax rate is 10%. If you then sell something for $10, you're going to charge them 10%. It's $1. So now they're paying $11. So what happens to that $1, the $1 of tax that was collected? Well, let's not worry about the company's accounting sheet, but generally, unless they have some special deductions, they're basically collecting that dollar and then they're remitting it to the government. So they're giving it to the government. They're simply acting like the bagman for the government. The company itself, though, does not pay a penny out of that money. They have their own costs, they have their own profits, and that all comes from the original $10. That $1 is a tax paid by the consumer of this product, which is then simply being remitted to the government. And here's where the blurring of lines or the intentional misdirection comes. The way that this is being framed makes it sound like it is a tax on Netflix, that Netflix, the company itself, will be paying this money. Now, there's a line here about limiting stock options deductions, and there may be some other taxes that they want to put on companies like Netflix if they have Canadian operations. But those are very, very different things. Putting a corporate tax or limiting the ways that shareholders in the company or owners of a company can take profits from themselves, that is entirely different than putting a tax on a product or service, because again, the tax is ultimately paid by the individual. Now, this combined with the fact that we're talking about everyone paying their fair share, she's really just talking about people, in essence, people who watch Netflix, that they have to pay their share fair. If you're watching Netflix and you're not paying tax, you're not paying your fair share. Now, that's every single person in Canada who has a Netflix account. It has nothing to do with rich or poor. Everyone who has a Netflix account is not paying their fair share, which is what this statement actually really means. Now, this is, again, something you might feel is justified. You might say, okay, I think that Netflix and other services like this should be taxed. Maybe Amazon, Airbnb, other services who are selling products or services online that are not located in Canada that I'm not paying taxes on. And there's a number of them that I'm sure you and I purchase on a regular basis. But that is an entirely separate discussion and an entirely different thing than to say that people are not paying their fair share and that framing it as this tax is going to be levied on Netflix, because ultimately it's going to be just a tax for you and for me. So if the government puts a 10% tax on Netflix, whatever you're paying for your Netflix subscription, you're going to pay 10% more to the government. Netflix is going to do nothing except have some additional accounting fees, perhaps, for determining how much money they're going to owe the government at the end of the day. But ultimately, it is a tax on you, it is a tax on me, it is a tax on every single person in this country that watches and pays for Netflix. It is not a tax on the company itself for them to pay GST and HST, and we should not let this thing be framed as such, because that is definitely wrong, and it is an intentional misdirection on Chrystia Freeland's part. So, hope you learned something about GST and HST if you didn't know it already, but I'm sure a lot of you are already smart and small business owners. But I hope you did learn something, and a lot of stuff to definitely think about. So thank you so much for watching. For True North, I am Sam Eskenasi. Don't forget to subscribe and have yourselves a great day. Take care.